episode of the Crossover Podcast, and boy, do I have a fun one for today. So, one of the things that I have done for an extended period of time now, dating all the way back to 2018 when the LCS first franchised, was I started tracking all the social media data for every organization in the LCS at the time. And I've maintained this all the way through to today. I've gathered the data a total of 6 times, including the beginning of 2018 Summer Split, post-Worlds, end of Spring Split 2019, and a few more times, including, most recently, the end of the second and third quarter. So I measured in spring of 2020 at the end, so right around April time. And then I measured specifically on September 18th of this year. So what all have I tracked? I tracked Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, Instagram, and I also track individual player followings, although I have not updated that portion specifically. I track YouTube followers as well, and normally I'll do a deep dive into the documentary series for each team. But for this specific section of time, I want to hold off on the individual YouTube documentary viewership because TSM just recently won. The viewership on their latest episode's not fully complete, so I want to give it time until December and then measure everything post Worlds and post roster announcements just so that I feel like I have a full data set there. So, to give a little bit of background on this data set prior to me digging into everything. First, I will be publishing everything that I have, like I do every time, on Twitter when this podcast goes live. The tweet that promotes this specific episode will also contain the breakdown and analysis of what my thoughts are surrounding everything, the state of the LCS social media, so to speak. And it's just one of my favorite tasks to do because the LCS is an organization, well, not an organization, a league that I care about deeply. Ever since getting involved with the league in 2017, I always wanted Optic Gaming in. And when Optic formally joined before 2018, I don't know why, but I just really wanted to keep track of this stuff. I've always enjoyed the analytical analysis of organizations, especially those that I care about. And even though Optic is dissolved and NRG is now taken that spot in my heart, I still want to keep all this up. And I have thrown NRG's numbers in there as well. Why? Because they're going to be very relevant to this conversation at the end. So, to give one final story before I go into this. Whenever I originally collected the data set, I believe it was post-Worlds that I published everything to Twitter for the first time because we had 2 different data points of which you could measure growth. And I luckily was able to get in contact with Chris Chaney, who was the CEO of Infinite Esports, who owned Optic Gaming at the time, because I had my gripes based on what I was seeing. And I wrote everything out pretty thoroughly, and he actually appreciated the data that was there and reached out in regards to specifically drafting a letter that he was going to present. One of the suggestions that I made was bringing in Optic Update, aka Joey, and unironically, he actually got hired about 2 weeks after. I talked to him privately, and it wasn't directly because of what I said. I believe the contract was offered before that, but the timing was impeccable. I just enjoy everything that's come with this. I've also gotten to speak with Travis Gafford and do a little bit of side work for him after the latest round at the end of spring 2020 was published. He liked what was going on, and it's just, I love what this data set has turned into and the opportunities that it's given, and I'm excited to see where this develops over time because it's one of the few places that I feel like I've actually tracked raw data. So this isn't via Social Blade where people look back in time. This is raw, in the moment numbers specifically pulled from the direct source. So digging into Twitter, going on to YouTube, and actually looking at the viewership. So without further ado, I want to start breaking this down by looking at a few teams specifically. I don't want to go over all the data that's available on Twitter if you want. But the first point I want to draw to is FlyQuest. FlyQuest had, in my opinion, one of the better rebrandings. Not necessarily a new logo, but just the drive that they've had with the Tree Quest, with the Sea Quest, and I believe they just recently today announced World's Quest. And I love what they're doing as an organization because it, to me, feels like they're pushing a long-term goal. But the question was always going to be, is that reflected in their social media followings? Did they pick up more people from the beginning of this year, or even when I last measured at spring to now? Well, the reality says this. FlyQuest saw an 11% increase in their social media following from end of spring to now. That is actually lower than the 14% increase they saw from Worlds to spring and the 15% increase they saw from end of spring 2019 to Worlds. Now, is that the only the only data to go off of? No. So when you look at some of their other information, their organization Reddit increased 29%, which is higher than any of their previous trends. Their Instagram increased 12%. Their Facebook didn't really increase at all. And going forward, I'm not really going to talk about Facebook much. I feel like it's more or less irrelevant for the most part when it comes to organizations. It seems like Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube are way more important. So their Discord saw a 19% increase and their YouTube saw a 12% increase. What does all this mean? Given the growth that other organizations saw, it really is kind of shocking. TSM and NRG blew everything out of the water, and I'll get to them in a bit. But I thought the initiatives would do more. And the reality is they didn't. And I think that goes to speak that while winning doesn't mean everything, as is evident by the fact that FlyQuest have now gotten second 2 splits in a row and have not seen a substantial increase in their social media followings at all. They have very little to show for it than they had previously, which you could take as a good thing that their growth is steady, but you would just expect more. You would expect to utilize the 2 splits that you did phenomenally well better. Now, are they in a better position going forward than an organization like Immortals? Absolutely. Immortals had horrendous statistics to split. Obviously, they had troubles with management, Zabutine and Keaton obviously being removed in summer, and it just wasn't pretty at all. Their organization's Twitter actually went down 2%. The only LCS organization to lose followers over this specific period of time. Their Reddit only grew 1%. Their Discord grew 8%, but by 200 users. So the percentage doesn't mean a whole lot when they're so little in volume. It's sad, but honestly completely expected. I called this back in the beginning of this year whenever they decided to pick the Immortals name over Optic for the LCS, which everybody knew was coming, but I still thought it was a dumb idea because the value behind Immortals was purely with Noah Winston. Yeah, they had a good team at the time, but there was no true following to Immortals. People kept saying left and right, oh, they're this legacy brand. They're going to come back in and they'll have fans, or they'll have a stable bedrock to build fans. No, everything that Immortals was when they accomplished their goal and got to Worlds and nearly beat TSM in summer, I think it was summer or spring split, one of the two, nevertheless. There was no remains of the original foundation other than the name. And the name meant nothing. And now, the name's a joke in the LCS. Can they turn it around? In a fairy tale land, yeah. But realistically, I think that they're done. I think the brand is just a matter of time before it's either forced out of the LCS from an organization point of view, or they have to completely rebrand in order to save any face at all. It's just sad. It really is, but not unexpected. Now, the bulk of this episode today, I want to spend on 2 specific organizations, TSM and NRG. Now, I know what criticism will probably come is that, why am I tracking NRG in an LCS specific data set? Well, I'm biased. Hate to admit it, but NRG is my favorite organization, but more importantly, is the organization that I believe should be in the LCS. I'll get to why in a few minutes, but I just want to go over these statistics first. TSM currently has the highest Twitter following of every major LCS organization since Optic dropped out of the league. They have 2,086,000 followers. They only grew 1% in terms of Twitter following, but I think that's kind of understandable given their size. But what's phenomenal to me about TSM, their Reddit saw an increase of 36%. Their Discord saw an increase of 67%. They went from 10,000 users on Discord to 17K. I think that's really, really good. Why? Because I put a lot of stake in Reddit and Discord personally. Discord specifically, in my opinion, is one of the most important tools, not from selling a brand, because I don't think you can utilize Discord users as, a tangible reason as to why you would have people that will buy your stuff. But that aside, I do believe that having a very active Discord is emblematic of people who are willing to buy into the culture and talk about it and put themselves there on a daily basis. I don't think that should be understated at all. Now, I said that TSM was at the top of one other organization, that's NRG. NRG is about the size of 100 Thieves on Twitter. 537,000 followers on Twitter now. Seeing a 40% increase from spring, the highest increase in Twitter following. They are growing at a rapid pace. Their Reddit, not as fast, but still good, 7% there, consistent with last month. But their Discord is unreal. 92% increase. Going from 20,000 followers, or 20,000 subscribers, I guess, on Discord, to 40,000. They doubled in size. The closest to doing that was Golden Guardians increasing 150%, but they only gained 5,000 people. NRG gained double the Discord users at a 20,000 user benchmark over a few months. Now, why is this important? Why am I highlighting these two organizations? Because they have the same thing in common. They both focus on content heavily. Now, 100 Thieves does as well, to their credit. They're seeing stable growth. Their Twitter following increased 17% on their main Twitter. Their Reddit, 14% increase, consistent with last time. Their Discord, 8% increase, sitting at 23K. Third highest behind NRG first, Team Liquid second, then 100 Thieves. They're incredibly active, but they are not utilizing one thing better than to the same extent that NRG and TSM are, and that is Fortnite. Fortnite is absolutely killing it. And I know what some people think, okay, well, what does Fortnite have to do with League of Legends? The reality is Fortnite brings in the content that brings in casual followers of the organization. For NRG specifically, if somebody comes on Twitch, discovers Ben J. Fishy, then starts following NRG, that's the potential for that person to also start following League because they are now a fan of the organization. If the organization can utilize the content and the players that they have in other games to make them fans of the organization, to potentially turn them into fans of other esports, that's your moneymaker. That was the Optic charm back in the day. Optic was Call of Duty, Halo, but then they pick up a CS team and all of a sudden this mass of followers went that direction. It's actually the reason why I started this, because I wanted to see if that carried over to League of Legends, and it didn't. Optic failed in that regard. They could not convert their massive following to other games outside of FPS. The question will be, and we saw it in viewership for this summer's finals, can these organizations convert these casual fans that they're picking up from other games into League of Legends fans? The viewership for summer finals was the all-time high, I believe, for North America. It was incredible, the numbers that they pulled in just compared to last year. I forget the percentages, and I'm not able to pull it up at the moment. But the TSM effect is real, and I truly believe, getting into the final portion of this podcast, the numbers that NRG have as an organization outshine almost everybody in the LCS other than TSM. Yes, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, Cloud9 are all bigger. They are legacy orgs that have a larger following at the moment. But you know what? I don't think it means a damn thing because NRG is growing fast. They're getting big. They know how to capitalize on current trends. And that's important. If you replace Immortals with NRG, the league becomes infinitely stronger. The marketability of the league is tenfold. Why? Because I think you give Hex the resources and you give him the time, and he can develop one of the best League of Legends programs out there. He wasn't given the chance with Optic, but I damn well know that he can. Same with Andy Miller. Look at what they've done with all of their other teams. They have the best Overwatch team. I don't know currently, but I know they were last year, obviously, and they're still dominant this year. They have one of the best Rocket League teams. Call of Duty is, I mean, it speaks for itself. They may not be the best team, but they are easily the most followed by a mile. And that's with separate branding. That's the incredible part about all this. NRG is growing at this pace, and their two biggest teams are under different franchise names. The Huntsmen and the San Francisco Shock are not directly involved with NRG in terms of branding and marketing. They have their own things. They have their own sponsorships as well. And the fact that NRG is capitalizing on trends like Fortnite and other new content to constantly bring in new viewers, that's massive. That's what you want from a new team in the LCS. I wouldn't even wait for the LCS to expand if it ever does. I'd try and bring NRG in as soon as possible. We already know Andy Miller wants in. We already know Hex wants in. They've said so on their Duo podcast. They said it's just a matter of time and a matter of if they can get the, I mean, they can get the money. But Andy's jokingly said that, you want to give me $30 million and I'll do it right now. He wants another chance. If there's one thing that all of these numbers show to me, it's simply this. LCS organizations need to better utilize their tools outside of League of Legends to grow their League of Legends following. I don't think very many orgs in gaming history have done a great job at converting fans from one game to another, barring Cloud9. Cloud9, I would argue, is the most sound organization in existence at the moment, other than maybe G2. There's tools out there to utilize that can get this done. Obviously, catching the Fortnite wave properly when it was at its peak is a big plus. But there will be more things that come out. It's incredibly important to have management that's willing to stay on top of trends and capitalize on them to then push your organization ahead and then use that to bring more awareness to the areas that you're already in. I'll wrap up by just reviewing everything in general. All LCS organizations, including NRG, who's not an LCS org, I don't have the number separated out. My apologies, but it was 6.2 million followers cumulatively. At the end of Spring Split, it is now 6.7 million followers. In an era of COVID where everybody's at home and esports are one of the easiest forms of media to consume at the moment, it's a decent sign. It's not as much as the 1 million growth that we saw from post-Worlds 2019 to end of Spring Split, but it's decent. But a lot of that weight is centered on just a few organizations. I enjoy doing this. I will continue to do this. I love to have any conversations on it. If people want to reach out, if you want to reply with your thoughts on what organizations can be doing better to grow their social media followings, I'm all ears. By all means, I want to hear it. Like I said, the data will be out there to the public to use. Obviously, this data set's not fully complete. I can't tell you what the utilization rates are because I don't have that information. All of this data is what we can gather from the outside looking in. Do with it what you may. I'll leave it on these three conclusions. TSM and NRG are absolutely dominating everybody, and it's not even close. Smaller organizations need to figure out a way to stay relevant and grow their social media followings in a more meaningful way, whether that's through other games or better initiatives. But as FlyQuest has shown, initiatives are not always the way to grow a social media following despite having good graces in the community. And finally, personal bias. Immortal should really just throw in the towel. NRG, please buy out their spot. I'm begging you. It'd be my best wish. Christmas is coming up. That'd be nice. But thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to drop a follow on the podcast, follow on social media. My Twitter, again, is at DSZAJNUK. If you want all of the information that I talked about today, it's all there. Feel free to hit me up with any comments, replies. Please leave a 5-star rating if you're on iTunes. Thank you again for tuning in. And everybody, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday for another episode. Bye.